All right. So kia ora koutou, no mai haere mai. Today we are talking about getting the job. So in the final of our support work series, we're talking about what disabled people are looking for, the kind of things that you need to know about support work ads and interviews to help you be prepared in this journey. So for those of you who don't know me, if you're joining for the first time, I'm Ainsley and I'm the CEO of Flying Kites. And I've worked in disability supports for about 20 years as a support worker, managing a whole range of disability services. And I also have in my home life some support workers that help in my household. So that's me, and I'll let Olivia introduce herself.
Ta-da! Can you hear me? Yep, sweet. I'm Olivia, and yes, I'm an intern with Flying Kites. I'm currently studying sociology, and so yeah, it's part of the intern project. I've been working with Ainsley to develop these workshops, and I have been a support worker for the past few years, and also done some recruitment as part of that. So yeah, happy to share all our information with you.
Awesome. Okay. So when we go through our slides, what we're going to talk about today, lots of it's the practical steps and tips. It's where people are advertising jobs, what employers are looking for, thinking about interviews. We'll talk a little bit about study and those sorts of things. And then we will talk about Flying Kites and the work that Flying Kites does in recruiting staff. So hopefully that gives you a good picture of what you can do in this space if you are looking for a job, know people who are looking for a job, or if it's just information to tidy away for next time you're in the market for a job. So we go back to our captain and support crew analogy. So throughout this series of training, we've been talking about the captain of the boat, the captain of the boat being the disabled person who is in charge of where the ship is going, what those goals are they're working on, and ensuring, I guess, that they've got the resources that they need to be the captain of the boat. When we're thinking about us applying for jobs, when we're looking for the right support work job, it's almost like we are this person standing on the side of the what's the word for it? Waiting to get on the boat. So our job, if we're looking for support work, is to scan all those boats that are out there, all those captains that are out there, and try and find the right fit for us. Not every boat is the right boat for you. If support work is so broad and so varied, it is about you finding the right fit, and about being a bit transparent with the person you're going to support, whether or not you are the right fit for them and they are the right fit for you. So today we are standing on the dock. We're standing on the dock, looking for boats, trying to find the right fit for us, and then having that conversation with the captain to see if they're going somewhere that you could be helpful to get to. Thinking about the skills, the resources that we have on this journey towards supporting this disabled person. So over to Olivia.
So, yeah, so we're talking about this process as if you don't already have a support work job. So yeah, just keep that in mind. So these are some preparation steps that would be quite helpful to know as you're delving into I know that I want a support work job, but how do I get it? And so it's good to know what you want, and even if you don't know what you want, knowing what you don't want can be good, and knowing what you would be fine with. And so this is just an example of, for example, someone saying, I know that I want 6 to 10 hours a week, and for the main tasks to be companionship and cleaning. And I know that I don't want any permanent night shifts or to do personal care or intercity travel, but I could also be okay with childcare, pet care, travel within the city, or being in a house where there's smoking or vaping, or community outings. So all of these things are really important because hopefully this information will be on a job ad. And so if if as you're scanning for jobs, it can be useful to just know what stands out to you by knowing exactly what you do, don't want, and what you could be okay with. So yeah, and in line with that, it's good to consider your natural styles, like your communication, as we've talked about in the your communication kit, knowing whether you are quiet or chatty, whether whether you are fine with communicating with someone who can be really blunt, or if you're like me and very sensitive, and how you are in handling pressure, and whether you are fine with working one on one or good. And it's okay. It is absolutely okay to have preferences about these kinds of things because um, just because you are a support worker doesn't mean that you have to support every single captain out there. You are looking for your captain or captains. You might have more than one, but and so it's really just good to know what you're comfortable with and how that can look in a job. And so, as we've also said at the beginning, it's really good to have a connection with the person that you're supporting, especially if it's through individualized funding, the one-on-one work with someone where you're most likely seeing them quite regularly, that you can sometimes see them like twice a day or like every single day of the week. And so having that point of connection can be really grounding for you and the person that you're supporting. And so as you're thinking about wanting to get a support work job, keep thinking about what you're interested in, what your communication is like, and what skills would be useful so that hopefully when the right job comes along, you can know exactly what you want and be like, yes, that is what I've been looking for. This is the captain that I would like to support. And so, yeah, having that all in the back of your mind can just save a lot of time and energy and stress.
So you've sat down, you've written your little list. You've gone, these are the kinds of jobs that suit me. This is the stuff I know I don't want. And then you have to go find some job ads. So clearly, we highly recommend looking at the Flying Kites website. We've got a list of jobs on there. But to be honest, we don't have huge numbers of jobs. We don't have hundreds of jobs like some of the big websites. And so we may not have the right fit for you. So clearly, lots of jobs are advertised on places like Seek or Trade Me. If you're eligible, things like Student Job Search can be a really great option. It costs quite a lot of money to advertise on Seek and Trade Me, and Student Job Search is free. So you find that individualized funding jobs are far more likely to be advertised on Student Job Search. And that's just because it's more accessible to families. There's a website called Do Good Jobs, and they specifically advertise kind of community focused work. So lots of organizations choose to advertise their jobs through Do Good Jobs. And then there's like community specific options. So in local Facebook groups, in kind of newsletters or community announcement kind of things that happen wherever you are, from the local church, from the local community house, from whatever kind of is strong in your community. The marae often send them out. So knowing kind of who like what channels of communication exist where you live, and watching those for job ads or going out there and specifically offering a service can be okay. So those can be really good options. And that often helps, particularly if you're looking for part-time work. So you want something that you're not traveling too far to get to. What we often find is that when we advertise on places like Seek, we'll get people who live an hour away saying, of course, I can come to work for a 2 hour shift. And then they get the job and they're really frustrated. So trying to look at your local community can be a really helpful avenue to find the jobs that are close to you. Um, and what you find when you use those websites is that disability jobs get listed in lots of different places. So often they're listed under health support, they're listed under community services or not for profits, or sometimes household kind of jobs, depending on what structure the website has. And so that means that sometimes you have to look in multiple different categories when you're searching for a support work job, or use their like keyword search option and put in specifically things like support work or disability, to find the job ads that are listed, because they don't always kind of come up as a standard search. So either you have it, so you go onto Seek and you look under health, you look under community, you look under all the different categories, or you use reverse search to try and find them. It makes it trickier. It's much easier if you're in a kind of a big thing, like engineering, that gathers them all together because it's one title. But it does make it a bit trickier to find a support work job. But if you're not finding many, that's possibly why. So do try doing the keyword search. So you find a job. You've got a lovely CV, that's the goal. But thinking specifically about the cover letter is often the thing that makes or breaks whether or not you get an interview. Because in support work, your qualifications aren't always very important, and even your experience is not always very important. We are looking for the right people, the personality, the compassion, the connection that you're able to build. And so, what's in your CV is sometimes less relevant than how you present yourself. So when you think about writing a cover letter, do talk about who you are, talk about what you're doing. If you're looking for part-time work, why are you looking for part-time work? What are you doing with your other hours? And be clear about why you are applying for this job, this specific one, not generally support work, but this job feels like my job because. And in there, how you can be a really good fit for that one. So whether that's about experience that you've got, whether that's about skills that you've got, whether that's about honestly telling them that job is really close to home actually does help, because people worry that you're not going to drive from the other side of town. Um, and then, use the things that they've asked in the job ad. If they've asked if you have a driver's license, tell them you have a driver's license. If they've asked for you to have experience, tell them about your experience. They will read your CV, but this is the personality piece. This is the piece that shows how you show up, and they're trying to work out whether you're a person that they could get on with. So do take the time to write a decent one. So I had a little play yesterday with some cover letters. I gave AI a job ad that we had, and I said, write me a nice generic support work cover letter. And so the one side of it is it, and it basically says, I'm applying to be a support worker because I am nice, because I have experience, and I think I'd be good at it. And that's all it says. There's no feeling in there, no personality in there. It's fine. There is nothing wrong with that cover letter. But if I read it, well, it's a little part of a cover letter. If I read it, it doesn't tell me if I like that person. All it's told me they're kind and passionate. Tell me what they're passionate about. But it's just fluff, right? I don't know if you've got relevant experience. I don't know why you want the job. So then I went back and said, okay, let's be really specific. Let's talk about these things. So then the next one talks about the job ad that I gave was working with quite a challenging young lady. And so it talks about understanding, they use the term PDA profile in their job ad. So it talks about understanding what that means and actually gives an example. So it says, I've worked with people with PDA profiles, and what I've learned is that relationship only works when you lead with curiosity, not control. And that shows that yes, I've done the work, but actually I understand it. So the mum reads that and goes, okay, you get my kid. Like at a high, fluffy level, you actually understand. Um, and then it talks about what they love about the job. And then they talk specifically, the job was at 6:30 in the morning. So it talks about getting out of bed at 6:30 in the morning. And it talks about the goal of the disabled person, which is building her independence. And so when you compare the two cover letters, the first one is, I am a good human who would like a job. And that's good. Like, be a good human who likes the job. But actually, what you want to be is a person who genuinely understands the job, who is genuinely motivated for this job and understands what this job is trying to achieve. Um, Clearly, it takes more time. And like I say, I used AI to write this, and I have no qualms with people using AI to write cover letters or CVs. I think that it's a cool tool to be able to make the most of. But my best suggestion is read what it says. I get cover letters all the time with insert name of organization here. Send me a cover letter that's like, hi, I have great experience working at insert name of organization. I know that you didn't actually take the time to write this cover letter for me and actually read it before you sent it to me. And make sure that it's genuinely about how you think and feel about the job. Because if you just write a general one and you don't have the experience, that stuff will show up quite quickly. But yeah, do use AI to make it sound clear, to put your argument forward nicely, if that's how you like to do things. But definitely read it before you send it through because I can tell. I can tell the generic ones and I can tell the ones that you didn't write. Um, so yeah, I guess for me, when I read, I would say the decisions about who we call are probably 80% cover letter, 20% CV. Genuinely, I read your CV, I'm like, oh, that's what you're studying, that's what you're doing because you made reference to it in your thing. But I quickly scan the CV and I read the cover letter word by word. So take the time to write them.
Hmm.
And oh, I love you.
Yes, so hopefully your cover letter is all honest. And so if you've made it past that cover letter stage and they've been like, okay, I want to interview, then here are some interview tips. And so one of the most important things is to remember that if the person being supported is present, make sure that you address them as much as possible. So as soon as you walk into that room, or it might not be a room, it might be a Zoom call, but if you are physically meeting them, go up to them and say, "Would you like a handshake?" Because or because and asking is really important because you're showing that you care about them and their preferences, and not everyone is comfortable with handshakes or physical touch like that. And so making that first established connection is really important. And it's good to remember that an interview is a chance for you to meet your potential captain and figure out if they are the right one for you. And so, um, yeah, as much as interviews are about them meeting you and figuring out if you're right for them, you're also doing the same thing basically. And so thinking about your communication kit, your style, and also just the job in general, it would be good to have a few stories or experiences that you can share with them because when I did recruiting in my previous job, a lot of the questions that I would ask a support worker sitting across the table, I would ask them, could you tell me about a time when you had to deal with sensitive information? And so they would have to share a time when they had to deal with sensitive information. And when some people are caught off guard. They're like, oh, I can't think of a time when I had to deal with sensitive information, but I know that I'm good at keeping secrets. Um, and so that kind of response is it's just not really uh, it doesn't stick. It doesn't show the person that you might be supporting that you actually have dealt with sensitive information, or basically that you actually have the specific and relevant experience to do that job. And so it's also um, yeah, it's just good to have those stories in the back of your mind and in line of what you're applying for. And so, yeah, like we say, connection is probably the most important thing. Like you've already talked about a bit about yourself in your cover letter, hopefully. And so that personality should hopefully be really in place when you're in your interview. And so, yeah, building that connection of what they've read in person can really make or break the role, because those first impressions are really important. Next slide, please. And so, yeah, it's good to remember that the disabled person is probably really nervous in that interview too, especially if it's their first time or they might have some anxiety or just there's a lot of stuff that goes into interviews to get them to where they are in that room with you. So just maybe even acknowledging that you're nervous could be a good way to break the ice. But it's also at the end of interviews, they tend to ask, "Do you have any questions for me?" And a lot of people they haven't really thought of that because they're like, "Oh, well, you're the one asking me questions." So it is really good to really show that you're interested in the job and that you've been thinking about what you can bring to the job to have those questions ready. So some of those questions can be, what does a typical shift look like? Or what does a good or bad day look like for you? And what, yeah, what do I need to know about your communication? And then you could share how you communicate and say, this is how I communicate. How how does that work with how you communicate? And so the essence of these questions is that you're trying to show them that you're really interested in being on their support crew, and you're also trying to figure out what makes a good support worker to them. Because they've been through all the questions, they've probably got like 5 more interviews to go. And if they know that you are asking questions and you're genuinely interested in what the role looks like and in what it looks like to them, then yeah, that's pretty good. It sticks with them, and yeah, hopefully you would hear back from them.
Awesome. Um, so we get lots of questions about qualifications. Do you need to have a support work qualification? So the general kind of understanding of what a support work qualification is that there is this certificate in health and well-being, and it comes at a level 2, 3, and 4 certificate. And so those you can do online, you can do them in person. There's kind of blended situations. If you get a job in a big organization, they will often put you through that training program, because they have an agreement with usually with the unions that they have to show that more people are getting the qualifications and getting the better pay rates. So it all depends on what kind of your intentions and your plans are. And there's different specializations within the health and wellbeing stuff. There's things around healthcare assistance, which is designed more for hospitals and rest homes. There's ones around mental health, around aged care, around disability support. So you can kind of pick a focus area. So if you are intending to be a support worker in the longer term, then absolutely they're courses that people like, and they're very clearly paid to tied to better pay rates. Because if you have those qualifications, they have to pay you at certain minimum pay rates. But lots of other qualifications also cross across. So if you have another qualification, perhaps you've had a career in something else before, you can go onto the Ministry of Health website, and the link was in the last slides. But you can go and have a look. If you just Google pay equity kind of qualifications, you can see what degrees, what random other certificates count across for pay equity. But generally, honestly, it is about personality. It is about how you engage with people. It is about relationships that you're able to build. And it's less about whether or not you have a qualification. Lots of things like psychology and sociology and social work and nursing are really, really relevant. And we get lots of people who have international qualifications, maybe, who um, got had a different career in a different country, and that doesn't qualify through into New Zealand. So lots of people come with nursing qualifications or social work backgrounds into support work because those qualifications are less demanding in the support work field than they are in some others. So study never hurts. but it isn't a core requirement for getting a job. It would be very rare if you had the interpersonal skills and the passion and enthusiasm to be a great support worker. It would be very rare that you didn't get the job because you didn't have a qualification. That's not usually the first thing people are looking for. So, if you do want to do some learning, whether you've got a job or whether you're just thinking about jobs, this is a set of organizations that exist, and we'll send them specifically when we send out the YouTube video next week, so that you can see the links to the organizations. But places like Autism New Zealand and Altogether Autism are kind of organizations specializing in information about autism. And sometimes they run workshops, not on a regular schedule that I can tell you about, but they do run some workshops that might be relevant. Reframing Autism is an Australian organization that has a free e-learning program designed by autistic people to help you understand some of the stuff we have talked about the social model of disability and around kind of how, like person-centered services and language. That if you're wanting to do some more learning, it can be a place to go. Disability Connect are an Auckland-based organisation, and they do kind of sporadic workshops on all range of topics, some of which might be relevant to the work you're interested in. I actually run a library, so a disability specific library, where you can get anything from like picture books talking about the experience of being deaf to kind of complex research articles about the history of something or other. So if you are a reader, it might be worth going to have a look. It's free and anyone can sign up to get books and you just post them back at the end. Um, Open Future Learning is a cool organization. They do e-learning modules. They do charge fees for what they do, although they do have a free trial option if you wanted to do something a bit intensive. And they're designed primarily for people with intellectual disabilities or training about people with intellectual disabilities. And they cover lots of things around rights and around kind of behaviors of concern and around sexuality and all sorts of different topics that are really interesting, but reasonably expensive if you get out of your free trial. And Parent to Parent is also a national organisation that occasionally run workshops in the community, and their website has some quite cool, like explainer guides about how pieces of the system work, or about autism if you don't know much about it, or different things. So it can be worth having a little look at if you're just interested in building your knowledge and resources. So, what does flying kites do? Having told you all that, um, when we are recruiting, what happens is a disabled person comes to us and they say, "This is the support I need." They tell us about the support worker they want. And once we've found them, the disabled person or the family is the employer. So we are purely a matching service. So they tell us about their job. We write a job ad just for them. So it's unique and tailored to that individual, that job, and we connect them with the right applicants. So, unfortunately, what that means is that we might not have the right job for you at the moment. We might, we find people, they go, "I'd love a job with you," and we talk to them on the phone and they're fantastic, and they live in the wrong part of the country and we don't have a job there, or they don't match with the skills that this family is looking for, and we don't have anything else local for them. So if we don't have a job for you, do feel free to still send us through a CV and an email and say, look, there were no jobs on your website that might suit us, me in this situation, but I'd love to know that I exist in case a job does come up. And you can sign up to our newsletter and things like that so that you will get emailed our jobs each month. So you remember to come look and see if you match today. But that's my actually the hardest part is that we meet wonderful people who would make great support workers and we just don't have a job for them right now. Um, so that's why Seek, Trade Me, Student Job Search, look in the other places too. Most customers that we work with use individualized funding to pay their support staff. And so that means that they use a third party to run payroll and to make sure that the taxes and stuff are all taken care of. And flying kites has nothing to do with that once you've got the job. So that's, I guess, the biggest things for us is making sure that you are, like I say, I reckon it's 80% how good's your cover letter, 80% how much did I read it and go, this is a human that I would like to talk to. This is a human who matches the person that I've spoken to who's looking for support. And far less about your qualifications, far less around your, the how many boxes you tick, and far more about how you come across, and whether or not you seem like a person who's going to build that connection that's really genuine with someone. So, going back to the stuff we've covered in the last 3 sessions, when you're in the role, you're often working directly for the disabled person. They are your employer. There's no HR system, there's no fancy tick boxes and process that you get to go through. There's no formal induction or orientation. And sometimes the disabled person's never done this before or not had to do this very often. And so they don't have a list of these are the topics that I will cover to help you learn about the job. And for some of them, it doesn't even occur to them to explain to you the different nuances of the job because it's just their life. And how would you not know? So I think it's really good to kind of give yourself a little list of what's the stuff you need to know, so that you make sure if the disabled person doesn't cover it, that you circle back. So some of it's about like how that person wants to be engaged with, how they want you to address them or other people in the house, um, what normal looks like in their home, and not assuming that it's the way that you do things. So you don't want to be calling people by their first name when they expect you to be calling them Mr. or Mrs. somebody or other. You want to be like, okay, cool. So how can I do this best? How would you like me to refer to you? Um, and what their preferred communication methods are. So, I do this for a living. This is my job. And we have support workers. We've got a reasonably new support worker in my household, and she had assumed that something that she was needing to claim mileage, and she was assumed that this process would magically happen. And we hadn't thought to tell her how to make the process happen. And so she's like, well, you're not paying me mileage. Where's my money for my mileage? And I had to go, right, this is the process. It should have occurred to me. We'd talked about paying her mileage, but neither of us had said, how will we actually get you the money? And so it took her complaining for me to go, oh, whoops, right. Can we please do this in the future? And now we're sorted. But, my brain didn't think of it. And so she ended up short for a fortnight. And we fixed it, and that's fine. But sometimes it is about communicating how you want to talk about things, how they like to talk about things. If you're going to call in sick, who are you supposed to tell? If you have an issue or like something goes wrong, there's an incident, who are you supposed to tell? And like, how is that supposed to happen? So that you know what that looks like. And some of that's the confidentiality privacy stuff that we talked about of like if there is something you're worried about, are you allowed to raise it with the parents? If there is a confidentiality or an issue about not getting paid, who are you supposed to talk to that about? And kind of being clear about who you're allowed to talk about things with. I'm really big on the introductions in public. So knowing before you get there how you're going to say, if you run into somebody that you know at the supermarket or someone they know at the supermarket, do they want you to say, oh, this is the autistic person I'm supporting? Or do they want you to go, I'm just hanging with John today, and not explain? Or call them your friend or call them your, I don't know, what? Everyone's got a preference, and it's really nice to know that so that you don't out them for their medical information in public. Um, Knowing about the tasks you're going to do on a shift, knowing like how they're going to communicate what needs to get done, so that there is if you've got a list of this is how a house gets cleaned, if they want it done in a certain way or a certain order, that there is a list and you work your way through it or however works for you and them. But how will you know? How will you know that you're doing a good job? So Don't come in on day one with 25 questions and read them off like a little robot. But actually having some of those conversations and finding a way to bring them up is probably a really good idea. Some of it is saying, cool, so day one, can you tell me how I'm going to know what I'm supposed to do each day? That's a pretty valid question. But also kind of, not being afraid that if you get to the end of the first week or so, going, hey, I'm just really aware that I didn't ask how you want me to communicate with you. Could we just talk about a couple of scenarios so that I'm sure that I'm doing it right? Is a really like respectful thing to be doing, but also helpful to make sure that you um, aren't accidentally aggravating something or causing an issue when you didn't realize you were doing something different from what they wanted. So now you've got the job. Now you're all nicely inducted in the job. Good luck with you. Good luck. Have fun. And we will end our presentation there. But yeah, it's been cool to do this whole series, and I'm looking forward to, yeah, the videos are all online so people can watch them all.